believes that you were somehow acting in defense of yourself, even under a misguided notion. There's none of that here. All of your conduct was just for self-indulgence and just trying to take every bit of money that you could get a hold of so that you could go on and live this fast life. In as early as March, you began this relentless campaign to get rid of your husband. First, you're thinking, well, I'll just get him sent off in prison and that would be good enough. You used guile and sophistry to dupe others into your web of deception. You were the puppet master that was pulling all the strings. You weren't acting at the direction of somebody else. You were under the influence of somebody else. You were the one calling the shots. And you were engaged in a course of conduct not over some momentary lapse of good judgment. This wasn't like, I ran a red light, I shouldn't have done that. Or, what was I thinking? I had the gun in my hand and I shot it because I was angry. It was weeks and months that you continued with these different schemes to try to rid yourself of your husband. That was just something out of a novel. And it was horrible to watch it unfold as the trial testimony came out. It was pure evil. After those attempts to have your husband taken out of the picture by way of sending him back to prison for a long period of time, and when you learned that it wasn't good enough to have the house in your name, that if you wanted to sell the house, you were still going to need his signature, I think that's when it started to turn to even more sinister behavior. Mr. Selnick indicates that being remorseful or saying I'm sorry really doesn't mean anything. And I disagree. I think, even today, Mr. DiPolito is still your husband. I think that I'm sorry, it's my fault. I did it would have gone a long way. Not only for his healing, but it would have perhaps suited your own purpose. But I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard an ounce of remorse. The opposite of that. When confronted with the obvious facts, the most powerful testimony as to who you are is when you're in the police station and your husband walked by and looked in and you were begging him, tell him this is all wrong, tell him this is all wrong, and then later on the telephone you were saying he was confronting you with the evidence. I saw the tapes. I saw the videotape of you trying to have me killed. And you just cold-bloodedly said, I saw what you saw, and I'm telling you that's not true. And it was astonishing, the cold-blooded denial that you're willing to go to try to avoid the obvious. You have a certain facet of who you are with your mom, your sister, your brother, and they see the good in you, as siblings and parents should. But who you are when no one's looking, other than a camera in a police car, is quite different. And I think that peers deeply into your soul and speaks volumes of the way you were presenting this. And it was quite chilling to witness that. Based upon those factors, then, Ms. DiPolito, accept the verdict of the jury. I'll find you guilty. I'll adjudicate you guilty. And I'm sentencing you to 20 years in the Department of Corrections.
Dahlia's first encounter with retribution was a big one, yet it didn't last long. The sentence was thrown out on a technicality 1 month later, and she was able to remain under house arrest for 6 years awaiting her next trial. Her second trial began in 2016.
Dahlia DiPolito takes the stand with an unusual defense.
Dahlia says it was all part of a plan she hatched with her then-husband, Michael DiPolito, and former lover, Mohammed Shahadi, to get famous. Her now ex-husband, Mike DiPolito, says he couldn't wait to see what she'd say in court.
Let me know when she's going. I'll be sitting in the back with popcorn. I'd love to see this.
In an exclusive pre-trial interview with 2020 this past December, DiPolito said she's just misunderstood.
Who is Dahlia DiPolito? Understanding, sweet, and compassionate.
Manipulative, conniving. I got more than 3. Malicious,
Baited, enticed, and entrapped.
Her attorney, Brian Claypool, says Dahlia is the innocent victim of a fame-hungry police department.
What the police department did is they found out she's an attractive woman. In their minds, they're like ching, ching, ching. This is a perfect skit. There's no question about it that the Boynton Beach Police Department was dead set on manufacturing a crime here.
How damaging are these tapes to your client?
They are damaging because people have formed opinions.
Our job in the second trial is to provide the proper context for the jury to see that this is not really what it looks like.
Claypool claims she only kept up the act because Muhammad threatened her with a gun.
He threatened to hurt me and to hurt my family.
Did you believe he would?
Absolutely. Yes.
So she was threatened to act out a hoax on a videotape? I mean, do you understand how ridiculous that sounds to a
No.
lot of people watching
Yeah,
this?
that's not ridiculous. You've got a 6'2", 230-pound man with a gun.
Saying you will do this
Absolutely.
YouTube hoax
You-
or else? 5,000% sure, not 100% sure, not 1,000% sure, but 5,000% sure. How do you explain that?
I look at that video and I see somebody who's struggling with whether she's really sure.
She's struggling? What?
Why? Well,
How is she struggling if she's 5,000% sure?
well, you might find that humorous, but when I hear people say they're sure, I'm 110% sure.
Why didn't she just tell police her version of what happened?
I've asked her that question too. Oh, John, yeah, everybody, hey, Sergeant, this was just a YouTube thing we were putting together. She was in a state of shock.
I couldn't react. I just completely froze. I wanted to get out of there and I felt just paralyzed. The tape was a show. It was a tape. That was the purpose of it.
You were acting in those tapes,
Yes.
but you're telling the truth now.
Yes.
Why should we believe you?
That's what happened. The truth.
State of Florida versus Daya A. DiPolito, defendant. Verdict. We, the jury, can find as follows. As to count one, we find the defendant guilty of solicitation to commit first-degree murder as charged in the information. So say we all, the 16th day of June, 2017, in West Palm Beach.
Dahlia DiPolito was sentenced to 16 years in prison on July 21st, 2017. She was not given the possibility of parole, and her release date is set for August 24th, 2032. Her appeal was rejected by the Florida Supreme Court in September of 2019, and her sentence is now definitive. She is currently being held at the Lowell Correctional Institution in Gainesville, Florida, where she is expected to remain until the day of release. She will be 50 years old.
If your crazy prostitute wife that you gave your house to tries to get you thrown in jail on drug charges and then tries to pay someone to murder you, it's gotta be somewhat satisfying to have that person call and ask you for help. It's like, I really need your help. And you're like, yeah, I bet you do. But you tried to kill me.
I spit it from my Glock, it's an ode. I admit it here, the city code is lock and load. Any minute it's rock and roll, and you rock and roll. And feel your soul leaving, it's just the wrong day.
Twas the night after gifting, and all's with the land. Presents from every holiday, and returns to be planned. So, reach out by email, by live chance and phone. They reached customer service, and they want a loan. And it's this quick and simple, every gift switcher learns. To love any business, with many happy returns.
On the 2nd of August 2017, at approximately 5:15 p.m., 21-year-old Savannah Gold left her parents' home and drove to San Jose Boulevard in Jacksonville, Florida. shift at the Bonefish Grill, a casual seafood restaurant where she worked as a waitress. But on this occasion, she never showed up. It was a fairly quiet Wednesday afternoon in the diner. Her absence wasn't too much of a strain, so the on-duty supervisor simply took her hours off the roster for that day and thought nothing else of it. Suspicions only arose roughly 1 hour and 15 minutes after Savannah had left the house, as her father received a text message from her phone number. Savannah's older brother also received a text 43 seconds later. Although both texts came from Savannah's number, her family knew right away that something wasn't right. She had just left the house in what appeared to be very high spirits, but now proclaimed to be running away with an unidentified man without packing so much as a change of clothes. Not only that, but the text messages were riddled with errors and composed in a completely different way to how she would normally write. Her phone was switched off when they tried calling just minutes after receiving the texts, so they immediately called her place at work and found out that she hadn't shown up. It was at that point they called police and filed a missing persons report. Savannah had been gone for less than 2 hours. Roughly 40 minutes later, her car was found unlocked and abandoned in the Bonefish Grill parking lot, and the only thing missing was her phone. Her wallet, ID, and a number of other valuable items had not been taken. Investigators went through the parking lot surveillance tapes and discovered what would then become the primary piece of evidence for the case. The majority of footage remains undisclosed to the public, but a detailed description of what occurred has already been released. What we know is that Savannah parked her car and stepped out of the vehicle at exactly 5:31 p.m. She then walked over to another vehicle and conversed with the occupant for 14 minutes through the driver's side window. She then got into the back seat of said vehicle at 5:45 p.m. 14 seconds later, the car began to shake sporadically as if some type of struggle was occurring inside. The rear door swung open 3 times, but was immediately and forcefully shut each time. It appeared as though someone was attempting to get out, but couldn't. This lasted for 49 seconds until the vehicle suddenly stopped moving. A male figure was then seen getting out and proceeded to walk over to Savannah's car that was 20 feet away. The surveillance was grainy, and the person could not be identified from the footage alone. All that police could ascertain was that he had short brown hair and was roughly 5'11". Her phone. He then slashed the front tire with a knife before walking back to his own vehicle. He got in and drove away from the scene at exactly 6:04 p.m. Savannah was never seen exiting the car. This was a crucial piece of evidence, and essentially all investigators had to go on. They had to find out who the man was in the video, and fast. But they also had to be careful in how they conducted their investigation. They couldn't let anyone find out they had this footage in their possession, as knowing this information could allow a suspect to alter their alibi to fit with the evidence. This would take a significant advantage away from investigators during interrogation, and would hinder their ability to build a case to a considerable degree. Over the following 2 days, investigators briefly interviewed all the staff at the Bonefish Grill. For the most part, these encounters consisted of just 3 questions. When was the last time you saw Savannah? Do you know where she is? And is there anything you know that could help with our investigation? Within 48 hours, they had 3 potential suspects, whose names were then ran through the motor insurance database. The first suspect didn't have a license. The second suspect owned a bright red 2001 Jeep Cherokee, while the third suspect was registered to a 2012 silver Chevy Malibu, an identical match to the vehicle seen on surveillance. His name was Lee Rodarty. He was 28 years old and was both the manager and head chef at the Bonefish Grill. Coincidentally, he was the first person to be interviewed at the diner about Savannah's disappearance, where he told investigators that he hadn't seen her in about 3 weeks and knew nothing of her current whereabouts. It was only from his co-workers that police discovered he was having an on and off relationship with Savannah for the last 8 months, despite it being against company policy. From what investigators could gather, this was a very popular individual, rising fast through the ranks of his chosen profession. He was known for his charm and charisma amongst his colleagues, and also had a lot of success when it came to the opposite sex. On all accounts, his life seemed to be going very well, but he was now the prime suspect in the kidnapping investigation, and the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office planned their next steps in meticulous detail. At around 5:15 p.m. on August 5th, police arrested Rodarty while midway through his shift at work. They told him it was for an outstanding traffic warrant and took him to the JSO Police Department.
Will you do me a favor? I'll have you take that in. You can go ahead and have a seat for me real quick. I'll be right back, okay? Yes, sir.